I feel like when you're both really good at things, it can get a little complex because you both want to do it, or it's like, well, I can do this better. Like the things that might come up subconsciously, they might not say that to each other. But I think it's having a real conversation with one another before you get into business and have like understanding, okay, this is what's expected, and having those hard conversations, because we had a lot of hard conversations before I even got like super involved into the business. And I think it's being really transparent in your communication, being honest with one another of what it, like if something's bothering you, to talk about it. Because if you don't talk about it, then it festers and it could become a problem that doesn't even exist. Like you're getting upset about like something so small, but it had to do with like all the, like the 10 other things that happened previously.
Hey guys, welcome back to The Lux and the Short of It. Today, I'm sitting down with the incredible Dr. Caroline Iscovitz, a psychologist, international speaker, and entrepreneur who's all about blending mindset, impact, and sustainability. We're diving into how to take care of yourself and how it's not just personal, it's a business strategy. So whether you're a short-term rental host or building something big, Dr. C's insights on boundaries, burnout, and purpose-driven success are the ones that you don't want to miss. So let's get into it. Dr. Caroline, thank you so much for joining us. I know you've been on a bit of maternity leave. Take a second to mom brag a little bit. Tell us about your sweet baby.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I have the opportunity to. And thank you so much for having me, first and foremost. Yes, I definitely am so loving having a little girl. She is everything I could have dreamed of and more. And it definitely is a lot harder than I thought. I will say. I'm sure you can relate.
Yes.
But yes, it definitely has been such a beautiful journey, but also like the sleepless nights. We're out of the newborn trenches, which is great. She's now almost 5 months, like 4.5 months old. And it's crazy how your heart just expands. Like the moment I found out I was pregnant, it expanded. I was like, okay, my life has completely shifted, mindset, everything. But it's been so fun to I take her to music class and story time. And we just went to music class yesterday. So making new mom friends and all of that has been a cool journey, but it's just the smiles and babbling and all the cute little things that they do at that stage. I'm just in love.
So my niece, is about to she turned 6 months this week. So we've been kind of living, they live very close to us. And so I have 2 little boys. And so I don't get a lot of girl energy. So I've been soaking up all the sweet baby girl snuggles. So I know exactly the stage where you are. And I'm curious, you have such a wide knowledge base from entrepreneurship, your practice as a family therapist. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
Family therapist. So how have you, balance isn't the right word for it because I never feel like we can truly balance it all, but how have you integrated being a mom with being a business owner, getting your practice back started since you moved to Colorado? What does that look like for you, that integration?
I love that. I love that you use integration because I used to say work-life balance all the time. And then I was like, this doesn't exist. And then I started using integration. So I love that you use that word because it is impossible, I feel like, to balance everything at the same time. I feel like we go through different phases in life, and sometimes we're going to be focusing more on one area versus another in our lives. And I don't feel like I have it all together, I'll say. First and foremost, to be fully transparent. But I do think I am very lucky that I have such a supportive spouse, my husband, that I can kind of be like a stay-at-home mom, but I'm also doing my business and in between, when I'm pumping because I'm breastfeeding and all that stuff. So it's kind of figuring out how to manage my time in the best way possible. But that's always been my strength. I've always had a million things going on. But with motherhood, I would say I'm much more present now where when I'm with my daughter, I am fully there. My phone's away. I used to always be on my phone for social media purposes because I help with a couple companies on the back end for social media too. So I feel like it's more of, okay, where do I want to prioritize my time? Because she's only this little for so long, and just soaking up the cuddles and everything else that comes with just being present for your children. But it's just really about time management, being present, and understanding that, you only get so much time with them at this age and this stage too, and just really soaking up those moments. But I will say I'm very lucky that I have such a supportive spouse that's like, okay, like we run a business together, but like he's taken the reins for the most part the last few months.
That's amazing. It takes a village for sure. If you could narrow time management skills or practices, you could tell somebody one thing of how to manage their time better. Like, what is your unhinged, like nobody's dropping this tip? What would be yours?
Oh man, I feel like I've kind of stole this one from somebody along
That's fine.
the way. And I feel like it's a little bit, maybe more people know about it now, but for me, what's worked and has been the best is like prioritizing my top 3 things first thing in the morning. That used to be it before having a baby, because now it's like time is of the essence. Like you don't know what time you're going to get, but it's like, what's the most, like the one thing that I need to get done today for my business, one thing I need to get done for my relationships and like for my daughter as well. And for myself. So it's kind of like the top 4, but at least getting one of those things, even if it's 5 minutes, because I mean, a hot shower is like the best thing. Like when you have that moment, you take like for granted the things that like you used to do prior.
I have totally been there with both of my boys. I know you mentioned that you run a business with your husband. That's a solar business. Tell us about your journey to entrepreneurship. Like, how did you arrive at this place?
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. I will say, so in like growing up, I come from a family of educators. So it was always like, go to school, get a good job, and you'll be set for life. That was kind of like the unspoken language. I mean, my parents were always like supportive of any of our dreams, like my sister, brother, and I, and still are. But I would say like I went to school and I originally wanted to be an architect. Like I was dead set on being an architect, and I ended up getting a college cheerleading scholarship. And the school I went to did not have architecture. So I was like, okay, I'll just go for a year, get it out of my system, get to compete one more time, and then I'll transfer. And therapy and psychology has been very intriguing to me, just because I had been in therapy since the age of 16, just like on and off for like depression and anxiety. So I kind of knew about it, and I was always that person who would go to. So I ended up falling into psychology because I was like, okay, well, I can graduate a year early. I was able to figure out a lot of different things. So at 20, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go to grad school because you can't really do much with a bachelor's in psychology. I mean, you can do stuff, but not what I wanted to do. So I ended up, that was in Florida, and I graduated and then moved to California to pursue my master's and then my doctorate. And a year after my doctorate, I was just so burnt out from doing therapy. I was seeing like 30 clients on a weekly basis. I was just not financially getting compensated the way I would have loved to, because I was still like, I was practicing under somebody else's license. Like I was still an intern at the time. And through all that whole journey, I was like, this can't be the rest of my life. Like, I'm so tired. I feel like there's more, and I can help people in a different way, in a grander way, and like not just being so pigeonholed, it felt like, and like kind of stifled in a way. So a year after I got my doctorate, I ended up leaving the field. Everyone thought it was crazy. They're like, you just did all this school and now you're leaving. I'm like, yes. In between that, I was like working full time at the school and like doing my hours to get licensed, and in school full time. So it was a lot at that point. And I feel like my world had to crumble so I could rebuild it in a way that was going to be conducive to what I felt like I could shine my light in a different way. So I ended up leaving California, moving back home with my parents. And I was like, oh my God, I'm 28. Like, this is crazy. Like, I'm moving back home. This is before everyone started moving back home, like in COVID age. But I was just like, okay, feels like it's the right fit. I needed to kind of regroup, and I had lost a ton of weight. Like, I'm a small person to begin with, but I was just like, the stress got to me in such a physical way outside of the mental aspect. And so I was like, well, what if I had a conversation with a friend at the time, and they're like, why don't you just move to Florida, like be home with your family, start a coaching business, and then come to like Chicago. And I was like, that sounds like a great idea, because it's like, I can be anywhere. I don't have to be in an office, because this was again, pre-COVID, where not everyone was doing virtual sessions for therapy. So you had to be in the office and whatnot, and you couldn't really travel in that capacity. So I ended up going back to Florida. I thought my business would be up and running in 6 months, and that was not the case because I had no business experience whatsoever. And looking back, I do have a family history of entrepreneurs, but it was more of like silently like tied into that, like from generations prior. And I started the coaching business and then a consulting business. And then I started doing social media for some like real estate agents and different like industries. I was kind of just throwing spaghetti at the wall, to be quite honest. And nothing like coaching was working, but it wasn't like really paying the bills. And I ended up going back to work at Starbucks because I had worked there through college as part-time just to get health insurance and just have a little bit of capital. So I felt like, okay, even if my business wasn't like making the money I needed to, I had this like little tiny safety net and health insurance. And so fast forward after like it was about 3 years, 3.5 years, I was still in Florida. I was like, okay, Chicago's not happening. There's a reason it's not happening. Thank God it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up moving. I know this is very long-winded.
No, this is great. I love hearing. It gives us such a good picture of where we're going.
Oh, yes, yes. And so finally I looked at the map and I was like, okay, where do I want to go? I was like, I don't want to go back to California. It just like, there was a lot of like just negative energy there still. And I felt like I needed to just restart everything. I didn't want to stay in Florida. And I was like, I'm single. I have no responsibilities, nothing like financially tied to me here in Florida. So I literally looked at the map and picked Colorado. I had been here once before. I knew one person that I was like good friends with. I knew other people, but like a good friend. And I literally moved here knowing that one person. I was still working at Starbucks at the time, so I could transfer. I was like, I'll meet people. I'm a friendly person, at least I think. And it's like, I'll make friends. And so a month after moving here, I met my now husband, and like things just kind of spiraled and went really quickly. And that was almost 4 years ago now. But yeah, it just all unfolded there. And that's how I got into solar and started my YouTube channel, and just kind of things took off in the most beautiful way. But that's kind of been the journey of entrepreneurship for me.
Wow. I think so many people can relate to the part of your story of investing so much of your time, of your energy, I'm sure of your financial resources to go and get this degree. I mean, you went all the way through and got your doctorate in something. How did you find the courage to say, this isn't serving me? There is more to life. I'm burned out, and I'm going to make a change. How did you summon that up?
I love that question. That's a really good one. I think it had to do with, I just had such a support system. My parents are amazing, and they've always been supportive of anything we've done. And I think just knowing that I could come home, because I was very reluctant. It took me like a while because just a lot of personal things were happening too. I had like a really bad breakup, a really unsafe roommate situation. And it was just like my life was exploding at 26 is what I call it. And my parents were just like, you can always come home. And I was like, I kind of felt like a failure at first, to be quite honest. I was like, okay, like, why can't I, like, financially, it wasn't working. I was making $15 an hour at that time in Southern California. So I was honestly asking myself, do I get gas today or am I going to eat today? Those were like the questions that I was asking myself. I was barely making rent. Like my parents had helped me towards the end, but I was getting my hours. And then after that, it was just more of like, I can't keep doing this and running myself into the ground. And the courage piece was, do I want to continue down this road? Like my path was set for me. I had an amazing person I was working for. They wanted me to kind of be like the clinical director and take over and all these like great things that anybody as a therapist kind of wants to do. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people want to move up or have different credibility aspects and whatnot. And I just felt like it wasn't right for me inside. And part of where I came to this courage piece was I was doing my 52 hike challenge in Colorado or California. And I wanted to go to different hikes every single week, at least one. I ended up doing 56 in 8 months because then I moved back to Florida. But through those hikes, I kind of took myself on a journey that I didn't even realize I was doing, where having that different perspective on top of a mountain just really shifted so much for me. So a lot of it, I think, was just like subconsciously, I was shifting and changing and realizing, is this the life I want to live? And at the time, I was dating somebody who was an entrepreneur, and I was just kind of seeing there was other options. I don't have to follow the path that was set before me. I'm just like what you're supposed to do. And I think I realized you can shift and pivot at any moment. And I think that's where, like, even being an entrepreneur now, I've shifted and pivoted so many times. But I think I've gotten so much more comfortable with that because I realize you can't continue down a path that doesn't serve you anymore. And having that piece of, okay, well, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And if it, the worst case scenario, you have to start over or do something different. So I think, I mean, full circle going like back to just, I will be going back to the field, but it's just interesting how your path can really shift at any moment based off of life circumstances and the people around you, everything along those lines. And I feel like that's really how I just trusted myself, to be quite honest, like bottom line, trusted the journey and trusted that the universe would support me in that process. Like doing the work, of course, you can't be like, I want this and expect it to fall into your lap, but realizing that a lot of times hurdles and obstacles are placed because sometimes it's, is it worth fighting for? Or is it maybe you need to shift a little bit or tweak something?
How do you determine whether something is worth fighting for or if it's time for a pivot?
This was so hard for me. To be fully transparent, I think in the beginning it was really, really hard. Now I feel like I've gotten more comfortable with it. But I think it's when you're fighting against the current. Like it's not like a river and it's just like flowing. You're really like pushing against the waves and it keeps hitting you every time and it gets worse and worse. And for me, it got to a physical point where I had like lost a lot of weight and hair and my teeth had cracked, like my molars from the stress that I was experiencing. And I didn't even know I was stressed out. It was just such chronic stress. And it felt like that was normal, which it wasn't, of course. But I think part of it is I had to realize and go on a self-love journey and just taking care of myself, prioritizing myself. And I feel like by doing that, it's now a lot clearer of when I need to like pivot or stop because it's taking over with my well-being or like push through certain things, of course. But I feel like for me, it was just more like the grounding aspect, like how it felt for me. And if I can, like, of course, there was some hurdles, but the more I experienced more obstacles and hurdles, the more clear it became, okay, this might not be the right path for you right now. Like you could always go back to it or shift or tweak something. But I think it was just more how I identified it as more of being grounded and it just more doors kept opening up when things were aligned versus experiencing all the hurdles that I was.
I love that you use the term alignment because that has been pivotal for me as I've grown as an entrepreneur is when I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall and just trying to force something force something into being or force something to happen. And it just seems like every time I get through or I force open a door to try and get through it, there's, four more closed ones in front of me versus every time I've had a very successful venture, it's just like door open, door open, door open, door open, door open. And I mean, sometimes I have to go around a few corners to find the open door, but it's not a roadblock at every single situation. And I think that is a great example of alignment and kind of understanding in the short-term rental space, which a lot of my listeners are either in short-term rental business or investing in real estate. Sometimes it can feel a little bit challenging, especially when you're getting your first property and you're learning how to invest in real estate. And I see a lot of people, they mistake just normal roadblocks for just closed doors. And I see them willing to throw in the towel so many times. Like, let's say, for instance, they make an offer on a property and they counter back, like the sellers counter back, and then something happens and it's just the normal negotiation process. They take that, they don't get the right answer the first time. They take that as, oh, it's not meant to be. And they're willing to throw in the towel like very, very quickly. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is just like the normal part of doing business. Like figuring out that discernment and growing as an entrepreneur, and not letting the little things bother you was such a hard but good lesson to learn. But I want to shift a little bit and talk a bit about once your business is growing and you're in alignment with it. What have you done this time around in your solar business to build in some boundaries to prevent burnout?
Yes, I'd love this. And I think it's a big part of just realizing what are your boundaries, like even the time that you're working. I think it's been a little different coming back now into like the swing of things because I've been like kind of trickling back in. But on top of the solar business, I had kind of like a side recruiting business where I was like helping other solar companies get sales reps onboarded, things along those lines, just because I feel like that was something that's so natural to me, is like connecting with people and kind of reading between the lines for like when I was interviewing, because I don't think you can know somebody right away in like 15 minutes, of course. But with those boundaries, like when I first started doing the recruiting stuff, I was doing like 30 interviews a day. It was like really quick, like just, it was crazy. But that's like how I catch myself. I get in these like burnout cycles, but I've been able to catch myself a little bit sooner than getting to the point where I burnt out twice, like from therapy and also from coaching. Those were two big burnout situations. But now I feel like with the solar business, I'm able to set that tone of this is the only time I'm allotting for this. Like I am very clear with my time and energy, because also I feel like sometimes you just want to go because you're excited. You want to like continue to do like whatever project you're working on, or maybe it's a brand new house that you have on the market that you're selling or wanting to rent out, things along those lines. But I think it's being able to look at it from a standpoint of, okay, is this actually conducive to my well-being? Have I like gone on a walk today? Have I gone to hot yoga? Have I drank enough water? Did I eat 3 meals that are like nutrient dense? Like that's one thing I've been really trying to do too, is because I know when I don't eat certain things, my energy levels really plummet down and it just depletes me. So it's the little things, they make such a big difference. We might not feel like it does, but even having a phone call with a best friend for like 10, 15 minutes, I saw like a TikTok or Instagram reel about this, but it's true. Like you just have like 10 minutes or so with a really good friend, it shifts your energy. And I've seen it personally. So I know when I'm starting to feel depleted, I'm like, okay, have I like done, have I eaten? Have I like exercised? Have I gotten enough water? Did I get outside today? I mean, some days it's a little colder where I don't want to get out, even though it's like May, or almost June. But anyways, I think it's more looking at my well-being first and foremost is what's allowed me to set those boundaries clearer, because I know what I'm capable of and what, okay, I can push a little bit more versus, okay, I need to take a step back because this is not conducive to anyone. Like, because I feel like once you start to feel so depleted, your mindset isn't at the same point it was or fresh when you like started a project. So I feel like it's sometimes taking that step back. I know we've gotten more referrals when I've like taken a step back with like other homeowners that are like, oh yeah, we want to go solar, something like that. It's when we're taking a break, when we're not even thinking about business. It just gives that space to be provided for in that capacity when you're taking care of yourself. Because I think that's the number one thing, because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything, in my opinion.
Oh, I completely agree. Some things that I've done that have helped me create that space is understanding and like really drilling into my head of this is a marathon, not a sprint. Like there are certain aspects of the business that are a sprint. Like you mentioned, getting a new property online. Let's say somebody buys a short-term rental or they have one that they're getting ready to launch. That is absolutely a 2-week to 3-week sprint where you're putting all the furniture in and all of that. And it can be all consuming. And that is okay. That's a certain part of the business. Like at some point you just have to buckle up and get the job done. But those should be viewed as the sprint pieces of it. And so when we're looking at the overall longevity of the business, that's why I preach like having systems, processes, automations, so that your day to day, you're not operating in that sprint type of mentality. You're solving the issues that need to be solved, but for the most part, things are running smoothly in the background, and being able to get to a point in your business where that's not running you, I think is just absolutely, absolutely critical. So you can do things like take a maternity leave or, have that space. And then one of the other things that we are huge on, as I was sharing, we take retreats. We take our coaching clients at least once a year. We're hoping to do it a little bit more. We're getting ready to head out to Costa Rica because we are so intent on, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. Like, you need the space outside of the day to day of your business to be able to vision cast and think about where you actually want to go and reorient your why for why you're doing what you're doing, why you're running your business in the first place. Because, sometimes life shifts, sometimes life pivots. What's working, what's not? How do you know if you're just in that daily grind day after day after day? Then you get to a point where you're burned out and you haven't given yourself the space to feel and actually say, does it work or is it not? Is it time for a pivot, or is it something that I just need to get through the sprint portion and then make sure that I'm putting these things in place? So thank you for sharing that. But I know that you run your solar business with your spouse. And this is a question I get from clients all the time. It's like, how do two people who are in a romantic relationship, sometimes there are kids involved, so there's like a partnership of raising children, and then you throw a business in there, and sometimes one partner is more entrepreneurial than the other, and how do you keep your sanity and stay on the same page?
Oh, such a valuable question. At first, I was very nervous to go into business with my husband. We were actually dating at the time, so we weren't married yet. And the only reason I started even getting involved in solar, because I had no idea what solar really was. Like, my family had like a solar pump for a pool in Florida, but it wasn't anything what I've learned now. And I was like, what is this solar thing? Like, what are you talking about? And so I got intrigued because I'm just a very curious person and I love learning. I feel like I'm a lifelong learner. I think it's just so important to continue to grow and evolve. And so he started showing me a little bit about it. And I was like, well, why doesn't everyone have it? And then I started to see the sales reps that he had. And I was like, I feel like you could get like more people that are like willing to put in the effort, and just like what kind of we were talking about, some people are really quick to give up if it doesn't happen right away, like financially or just anything along those lines. And I was like, well, let me just like help you out like with the interviews. Like, I mean, I done like a lot of interviews when I was a campus manager for my graduate school. I did a lot of that interview aspect for like student workers and things like that. I was like, let me try it out and just see if I can like help you find some people that are like willing to put in the effort, quality, like talented, and like want to be there. Because it's hard to be a sales rep in general. So I was like, well, let me just try it. So I started to help him with that. And then I was like, you don't have a social media presence. Like, you need to have like a social media presence. He's like, I don't have time for that. I was like, okay, let me just like help you. Even though I had like a million other things going on, I was like, I just wanted to help him. And I saw an opportunity and I thought it would be good, just practice for me and just expanding my knowledge base. So I started to help with that. Then I started to help with like some admin stuff, and then started getting some like speaking engagements too for him. But then I started taking over some of those. And then I was like, we had a conversation and I ended up taking over 51% of the company after I was like just doing so much of the back end. And didn't even realize it kind of just like snowballed in a beautiful way. And the reason it works with us working together is because we're very different. We're very similar in like our core values, but what we're good at and our strengths are completely different. So I feel like I do more of like the front face, like networking, social media, admin, and getting leads essentially. And he's really good at selling solar, training people, all the like installation, because we do installation too. So like all the back end of that and financing and everything, he's amazing at. So it's like we complemented each other in that sense. I feel like when you're both really good at things, it can get a little complex, because you both want to do it, or it's like, well, I can do this better. Like the things that might come up subconsciously, they might not say that to each other, But I think it's having a real conversation with one another before you get into business and have like understanding, okay, this is what's expected, and having those hard conversations, because we had a lot of hard conversations before I even got like super involved into the business. And I think it's being really transparent in your communication, being honest with one another of what it, like if something's bothering you, to talk about it. Because if you don't talk about it, then it festers and it could become a problem that doesn't even exist. Like you're getting upset about like something so small, but it had to do with like all the, like the 10 other things that happened previously. But just continuing to have that open dialogue and knowing what your roles are too, having them clearly defined, I think helps us as well of like, okay, this is what I'm in charge of. This is what you're in charge of. And then sometimes it bleeds together of like, okay, well, this is like something I usually work on, but he's taking over on that, or vice versa. But again, it goes back to like the core of his like communication, but actually actively listening to one another, like listen to understand, not listen to respond. Because a lot of times when you're upset, you're like, well, I'm waiting to say my comment back versus let me actually absorb what this person has said and see if I got it and understand. And that's a lot of like my clinical background too, because I feel like I'm not the best at it. I have my moments because we're all human. But I think with spouses that are working together, it's just super important that you're communicating clearly, because you might think you're communicating, but then it's not really clear to the other person either, because they're just listening to respond versus listening to understand. So that would be like my number one golden standard across the board.
Listening to understand, not listening to respond. That is gold. That is such gold. So how did you guys determine like who was staying in which lane? Like how did you determine your roles?
Yeah, I think they kind of just like unfolded very effortlessly. And that's why I feel like it was a good like road for us. I mean, that's not the case for everybody, but it's one thing we did discuss because I was really nervous about it, because it's like, well, there's just so many statistics and like people like end up getting divorced sometimes because they're just like at each other's throats and it becomes like this explosion. And I didn't want that. So I was like very adamant about like talking about everything, maybe more than the average person. But that's also just like my frame of thinking. I think that what helped us stay in our lanes was like, okay, what am I good at? What is he good at? And how does that like help the business grow? But also like we're doing different things helps us not feel like we're also like in each other's way in a sense, or just like if we're working all day together, we're in the same house. However, we have like separate offices, which is nice.
Yes, for sure.
Because I think that just like clears it, and just doing different things helps. But I think for us, it was just really clearly defining it as we went. It's like, and that's how you build a business. You're building the wheels as you go kind of thing as well. Like he kind of already had it established. It was more of me just coming in and kind of tweaking things from like my perspective, and it allowed it to really blossom in a different way than it would have. It still would have blossomed, and it just, I tweaked a few things and it helped grow it and continue to have more people come on board. But I think it was really just having that conversation from the beginning. So there was no miscommunication or someone feeling like, well, you're taking over this and this is my role versus something else. So I think part of that is just having like it written down too, like having contracts, because I've had a lot of experiences in past businesses where there was not a contract and it bit me in the butt. So I think it's just important to have everything written down and have it clearly stated in writing. And that's what we have as well.
Good fences make good neighbors. Always.
Yeah.
Always.
I love that.
So, Dr. Caroline, we ask everyone at the end of an episode the same question, and I cannot wait to hear your answer to this. What is a time in your life where change has brought an unexpected opportunity?
I will say it's moving to Colorado is what changed everything for me. That decision to trust my gut, looking at the map, not knowing what was in store for me, because I was able to get in a completely new industry, find my husband, have my daughter, and our dog, of course. I can't miss out on him. Became a dog mom. But I think it completely changed my whole trajectory of life, in such a beautiful way that I would have never expected because I met him so soon of moving here. I didn't think like, okay, I'm going to meet my person right away. I had a feeling my person was here, but it just allowed me to grow as an entrepreneur because he has been an entrepreneur a lot longer than I have. And his thinking has challenged me in so many ways. I get very frustrated sometimes, but because he's right a lot of the time.
Funny how that works.
So annoying. But it just brought so much to my life, so much richness, so much growth and challenges and things that I would have never experienced in this way if I hadn't just taken a chance on myself and moved to Colorado. And it just brought so many new things to me.
I love that. So tell everyone where they can find you.
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure to be on today. You can find me at solarmama.net, and that's where my website is. It has my YouTube channel, everything else that I'm up to as well, and I have a blog in addition to that.
A podcast as well, right?
Yes, I do have a podcast. It's called Entrepreneurship by Design with Dr. C, and you can find that on Apple or Spotify, and I'm on Instagram and TikTok and everywhere else at just Dr. Caroline Iscovitz. Easy to find.
Thank you so much for joining us. And you guys make sure that you go check her out and give her a follow.
Thank you so much for having me.